Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break.
We would like to welcome everybody to number 65 of the Santa Cruz Guitar Players podcast. And today we are blessed and honored to have Billy Liz from Hustle Souls. Welcome, Billy. And we're going to get a bit of information from you. And boy, this is going to be fun. So
let's do it. I'm super excited to be here. Appreciate y'all hosting me on this coffee break.
Yeah. We were you have a gig tonight.
I do. We're playing tonight, fairly close to town, but I gotta leave after this, heading out for a show. Yeah, it's not as far away. Last week we were on the road all week and driving 5-6 hours a day. I'm barely going anywhere. It's gonna be easy today.
You're located out of Nashville?
Asheville, North Carolina. Yep. Asheville with an A, not an N.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Beautiful country.
Yeah, especially right now. It's like we call it peak leaf season, but it's like the biggest tourist time here is we got the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you never really know when it's going to happen. It's a couple weeks, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, where all the leaves are still on the trees, but they're all just like popping in wild colors, and it's absolutely gorgeous here right now. It's pretty stunning. All the leaves are gonna be gone. It's gonna be a bleak winter, East Coast winter, before you know it. But like the next week and a half is just absolutely gorgeous out here.
That's great.
We just met somebody I don't know, a little south of you who's in the Town Woods on our last podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually quite interesting. Reviving bald cypress, which apparently the English chopped everything down because they chopped everything down in England, and when they found Charleston Harbor, they realized that there was timber there, and that's the reason they did it. So, but a really interesting process to start a new wood for guitars.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I don't know that much about the trees. The drummer in my band is actually the wood expert. We drive down the road and we see a truck going by with giant piece of timber on there, and he'll tell you exactly what it is and freak out about the grain. And I'm fascinated by it, but my brain can't I can't remember. I can't identify things or remember that. I can't catalog things. So. Every flower is a rose to me. I can't tell the difference between a daffodil and a rose to this day. But there's, the East Coast, we cut down trees a long time ago. There is one old growth forest around here, but there's, it's the East Coast. I think people were very tree hungry pretty early on.
Yeah. Well, we had that connection because he's supplying some wood to Santa Cruz for their NAMM guitars. And that's actually how we got the connection to you, was from Joshua at Santa Cruz. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I knew of Santa Cruz peripherally. My dad had or still has rather, a music retail shop outside of Washington, D.C. area, Victor Litz Music Center. And so I've always known the guitar world a little bit, but I never played a Santa Cruz guitar. And Fred Gage from Sugar Mountain Music, my band, he started working with my band a little bit, and he kept talking about his relationship with Santa Cruz, and you got a Santa Cruz this. And to be totally honest, I was a little bit skeptical because I played a lot of instruments, and once you hit a certain point of quality, it's like, yeah, this works, this is good. But I actually, the first Santa Cruz I ever got to play was a used parlor guitar. It was real small, and I was playing multiple, just for fun, just playing multiple guitars in a similar price range, and the Santa Cruz just it was almost like driving a different type of vehicle. It's like it's not even a guitar. Like it sounded so clear, and it just responded in a way that I literally never felt in the guitar. And then I was like fully converted and fully a believer. And I was like, there is something really special happening here. And so I just got my Santa Cruz a week and a half ago, an H13, and I can't put it down.
That's a great guitar.
Yeah, that's Richard's. That's Richard's flagship guitar. He would in interviews you'd read about Tony Rice and all that stuff, and you'd read about all these dreads and everything. But that H13 is really his. Did you get one of the Happy Troms, or did you get the?
It's kind of custom built model, but it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can show it to you real quick if you're interested.
Yeah, no, guitar geeks here.
Yeah. Well, I'll just pick it up and just I'm not gonna. We don't have to go on about it forever, but I got this Georgia peach, spruce, and mahogany sides, and it's the most beautiful thing I've got, man. It's I'm like deeply in love with this thing already, and it's such a unique guitar, and it's so different from anything I've ever played. But I feel, I don't know, I feel like a little piece of my identity is wrapped up in this thing.
We did a podcast with Lisa Liu, who had just taken delivery of an OM, and she said it was 48 hours. She lives in New York, and she got it in the winter, and she said, I'm supposed to sit here and wait, to open it. Open the case. She said, I got to wait 2 days to open the case. And I think she broke that. She said she broke down after the first day. And she had written a song called Anticipation while she was waiting to open the box.
So I was told, do not open this thing for 24 hours. And in my head, I was kind of, I don't know if arrogant is the right word, but I was like, yeah, I've got self-discipline. If I want to go on a diet, I can go on a diet. If I want to do, I'm a pretty disciplined person. And I was like, this is going to be easy. I'm going to get the box. I'm going to set it aside. I'm not going to think about it. And the whole time I got this little devil on my shoulder, like, you can open it. Nobody's going to know. You don't have to tell anybody. You can open it up. It's going to be fine. It's fine. I bet it's fine. And it was a true test of my willpower to sit there and wait. Once I got a, you get a big, ugly cardboard box that could be it could be refrigerator parts in there. But then I opened that box out, and just the case is just this black, brown. It's like the sleekest, most, I don't know if I can say badass on here. You can bleep me out, but it's a badass case. And I was like, it was just gorgeous, and it just sat there taunting me. And I got a small house, so I kept trying to hide it in different spots to get away from it. But that you start to have these conversations like, yeah, nobody will know the difference. Nothing bad's gonna happen. But I waited, and it was well worth the wait, because by the time I took it out of the case, I was literally like kind of shaking with excitement. So,
wow,
yeah,
a new Santa Cruz. That's an awesome experience. Well, but tell us a little bit about your musical background. How did you get into guitar? I mean, was that your first instrument? In watching your videos, I haven't found an instrument you don't play yet. Maybe the kitchen sink.
Yeah, I play a lot of instruments. So my dad has a retail music store. So I was never.
Come on, give your dad a shout out.
Yeah, Victor Litz Music Center. My dad Tony, he's the man. His father actually started the shop. He was a jazz guitar player. He started teaching group jazz guitar lessons in the Washington D.C. suburbs. This is probably 80 years ago or something like that. So he'd go to community centers, and the shop's almost that old. So he's maybe even longer than that. He would get together the community and do group lessons. And then he started teaching private lessons. And the story I'm told is that he was more like me, where, he wasn't as business centered. He just loved guitar, and he loved playing music. And he had a little lesson studio, started selling some guitars. But then my dad, when he came into his own as like a, today 18-year-olds are barely out of middle school, I think. But when he was 16, 17 years old, he started running the shop and got really into the retail side of it, built it up, and kept doing lessons, but retail was a big part of it. I personally didn't really fall in love with music right away, but I always had the option to take some music lessons, and I was just never that passionate about it. But my dad kept bringing home weird instruments because he wouldn't have storage at the store. So he'd have some guitar sitting around for 2 weeks, and then he'd take it away, and then a drum set in the living room. And so, I would always eventually get bored of whatever TV I was watching, and I would pick up an instrument eventually. Then middle school band, and I'm a big school band program proponent, because I would have quit music 100 times over if I didn't join in school, because I just had to do it every day. And no matter what extracurricular activities I got into in high school, I was always had to go back and play music for 45 minutes every day. So trumpet in middle school band was when I really made a connection and made a breakthrough, where I felt like I wasn't just trying to learn an instrument. I could actually kind of make the sounds I wanted to make. And I fell kind of deep into it then. But, I grew up in the guitar era of music. Not that it's not the guitar era now, but I think especially growing up kind of in a music shop in the 90s and in the early 2000s, it was there was, you go talk about NAMM show, you go to NAMM and it's 90% electric guitars, and there's a couple pianos on the side and a drum set because everybody needs a drummer. But it was a guitar world back then. And I played trumpet, and it was kind of I didn't connect with Nirvana at the time, which my peers were listening to, because I was playing trumpet. So I was listening to Louis Armstrong and early jazz music, and then I eventually found indie rock, which kind of my bridge out of that. And I realized that the trumpet, what I really fell in love with in music was songwriting and writing songs. And that's still my main passion. And I realized eventually that trumpet's just not the vehicle for that. It's totally essential in the horn section. It's great when Louis Armstrong plays it, but you're not going to write, it's not the best songwriting vehicle. So I took music theory knowledge that I gained through studying on my own, playing music in school, and I was able to figure out the piano, which is a fairly intuitive, logical instrument compared to the guitar, which is still a bit of a mystery to me. But my music theory knowledge was helped me. I could play triads and I could play chords on piano. So I started writing songs, but still the songs that I was listening to, I was into Ben Folds, and, there's Elton John and Billy Joel and Dr. John and Leon Russell. There's a couple piano guys, but still guitar is where it was all happening in the songwriting world. And it was really, I went to school for college. I went to school for music in college, and I brought a guitar with me there so that I could write songs in my dorm room without setting up a keyboard or a piano. And it really connected with me just as a songwriting vehicle at first. So that's the longest explanation I'll try to give today. I'll try to talk less.
No, that's great. That's really interesting insight. I was thinking as you were talking about that, how trumpet came into really rock and roll, with Bloomfield and, forming this, what was it, Mike Bloomfield's Thing or something like that. But he literally paved the way for Blood, Sweat, and Tears and Chicago and CTA and all that stuff that was happening. Really, it's a really interesting voice. And I was trying to visualize writing Moon River on the trumpet.
It's an interesting image, but there's a lot of great trumpet composers and so on, especially in the jazz world, but they all play piano or another instrument, and it's a single melodic instrument. And I found, so I was a much more comfortable piano player for a long time, and probably still am compared to guitar, but first, and I've got a couple theories on it, on why it is, but I think the American songbook, like, it just lives on guitar. And for me, acoustic guitar in particular is where my favorite songs come from, where my best songs come from. One theory is that that's just what I grew up listening to, and most songwriters that I respect were doing. There's a lot more singer-songwriters that I can name that are playing acoustic guitar versus the piano. But then there's also, just if you're a budding guitar player playing your cowboy chords in first position, there's a natural voice leading that's built into the guitar. Just the way that the strings are arranged, where you're going to be on the piano to be able to pull off that kind of voice leading is actually pretty highly skilled, and it takes a lot of theory knowledge to be able to pull that off. But if you go from E to A, cowboy chord style on an acoustic guitar, it's perfectly voice led in the way that we want. And so you don't sound like a clunky amateur on a guitar right away. And the songs they just pull themselves together, and there's not, as many loose ends that need to be tied up on the guitar. And so, it was never a conscious choice to write on guitar, but it just, the songs that came just sounded better. And that's where I ended up doing it all at.
What's your process? Do you have the melody first, or do you have an idea, or what's your process?
It's a loaded question. The songwriting process is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So I did a songwriter showcase the other day where we were kind of going back and forth, me and the other songwriter in the round, and I said it was just like existential dread that is my process, and just thinking that a song's never going to come again. And it could go in a lot of different ways. I'm going to say the most common thing that happens is I get a block of time where I can sit down and play, and that could be 5 minutes, it could be 2 hours, and I go off in the woods and try to really make space for it. But I'm playing chords on the guitar. I'm finger picking. I call it going fishing. It's like you just throw your line out there, and sometimes something catches. And my job at that point is to literally throw stuff out there into the world and be paying enough attention where if something is good, or not even good, but has the potential to become good, I'm catching on to it, and I can work with that idea. And when a song is going to be good, there's a certain magical spark that is, it has nothing to do with voice leading. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's just a spark, and you just know. And I'm trying to get better at not talking myself out of the good ideas, and not convincing myself that bad ideas are good ideas. Because I've chased a lot of bad ideas into the corner and spent weeks on songs that I throw away 20 minutes after I call it done. But generally there's a melody is where that spark has to be. And the harmony is going to tell me a little bit about the background of the painting. It might tell me what genre I'm in a little bit, but the melody is what really, really matters. Often there's a simple harmony with it, a simple guitar rhythm or picking pattern or something that's pushing it in that way. But at the end of the day, it's all about the melody. And then, generally I'll write the whole song, at least a verse and a chorus, maybe even a bridge, where I know I could write a lead sheet for it. I could write the chords and the melody before I mess and do anything with lyrics. But the whole time I'm singing nonsensical, mumbly things. Sometimes there's a glimmer of something coherent. Sometimes it's actually like really deep thoughts that I haven't told myself about yet, that are actually coming up from the subconscious. Sometimes it's terrible nonsense ramblings. But once I get the music there, then I have an idea of the energy of the song, the vibe of the song, and I will often step away for a little while and then come back and try to dive into the lyrics in like a whole separate session. There's obviously exceptions to all of this, and it goes a lot different. differently. I've been carrying around a notebook lately. I've got this cool wallet that's. Are people gonna be able to see the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
So,
they see the video. Yeah.
we were playing this music festival, Bristol Rhythm and Roots in Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, and somebody was selling these leather wallets, and I needed a wallet, and this one comes with like a pouch for a journal, and I felt a little cheesy about it at first. I was like, who do I think I am? I'm not like Woody Guthrie walking around writing stuff down, but I was able to write notes about, hey, you need to call Steve back, or I get this idea. And I was just able to write it down, and a quick passing phrase or just a philosophical idea. And for the first time ever, now I've got these little nuggets that I'm able to pretty intentionally turn into songs because of this little notebook I have with me. So my lyric process has changed a little bit lately, but still it's coming after the music.
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
I was going to say a written notebook. It has an emotion. When you write, when you're putting lines onto a piece of paper, you're putting an emotion in them that you can't do with digital media. We all carry our phones and keep the note about the doctor's appointment or whatever else on them, but it's sterile and it doesn't mean anything. But writing a note, on a piece of paper, it's like writing a card to somebody or writing a letter to somebody. An email doesn't carry the same kind of emotion that a letter or a card does. And I think when you're trying to do something like songwriting, where that's what you're trying to do, you're trying to get something across to people, that those handwritten notes probably help you remember what that thought and that emotion was when you came up with it.
I completely agree, and I'm not generally a very metaphysical person, and but there really is something for me that is just like really ugly about modern technology and the iPhone, and it's practical. I keep a to-do list on my Google Sheets, and that's where I put remember to call Steve. That eventually makes it on there, and I sit down at the computer in my basement and I crank out work on technology we're having this conversation across the globe right now. There are parts of it that are very functional and helpful, but when you are trying to summon the muse out of the ether, something about a pen and paper. Sometimes I'm like, damn, if it maybe this mechanical pen is too much. Maybe I need a quill, and it's really I just think it's. I don't know, because it's like I don't like talking about energies and but there is something that feels completely different when I have a piece of paper and a pencil in front of me, and I've got a typewriter behind me over here. It's like, and maybe it's just in my head. It's like I think I'm Charles Bukowski because I got a typewriter, and I think I'm Woody Guthrie because I'm carrying around the leather-bound journal. But even if it's a placebo effect, which it may be, it's helping me get into that headspace and to summon the muse, and to just I see people writing songs on iPhone, and it's just like, to me it's just I just cannot imagine staying in that creative zone in that world. And I even I'm so busy now as an adult, and I got a newborn baby, and I've got emails to send. Thank you. Yeah, I've got emails to send all day. It's like lately I'm having to run further and further away from the trappings of my life to write songs, and I'm driving an hour and a half into the woods in the mountains here to just get away. Because with technology, with iPhones, there's notifications and meetings and things that are just it's an intrusive technology. It's like it would be great if it was there when I needed it, but it wants into me, and so I'm trying to push it away as far as I can from my creative process in the early stages. Eventually, we all record on Pro Tools, and you need the computer there, but that comes later.
You have permission to believe in the ethos and believe in the magic, because it truly is magic. I mean, examples. Petty played the first 3 notes of The Waiting for 2 weeks in his kitchen, and it's all he had. Henry Mancini, Moon River. Again, I'm sorry it's in my head, but I just watched something on him. He played those first 3 notes for a month in his apartment. He wrote the rest of it in 20 minutes.
Yes, and I'm partially, maybe I do believe in the magic of these things. I do believe in like the magic of the wood in a Santa Cruz guitar, and like I know that there's songs waiting in there and that inspiration. I do believe in the magic of a leather-bound journal, and I do believe that the same 3 notes in the same exact order from me on a different day are going to be lackluster, and they're going to, for some reason, they're going to have magic when somebody does it. And people talk about artificial intelligence, and it's going to come in and start writing songs, but it's like, I'm trying to steal Bob Dylan's best ideas all day, and it's like, and I can do the same chords and the same rhythm and the same thing, and if it doesn't have that magic spark, and I really do wonder, and I ask myself all the time, it's like, what is that? Can I get closer to what is going on there? Why is it when I go fishing for songs that sometimes when I play a D major, it's the heavens open up, and sometimes it's just it's just cardboard, and
it's called fishing.
It might just be magic. Yeah.
It's called fishing, not catching.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I firmly believe that there's forces greater than we know, and when we allow ourselves to accept that fact, that we're not completely in control all the time, and something's bigger than us out there, then good things can happen.
Yes, I believe it too, and I don't know why I feel like I need to caveat it when I talk about it, and saying I'm not generally metaphysical, but I guess that there is I'm trying to avoid sounding like like I'm an easy sell, like I'm this guy's gonna join the cult and drink the wine, like so I'm a skeptic generally. I'm a cynical, skeptical person. I'm pessimistic, and I'm fully convinced in this magic that is in some melodies sometimes. And so I guess that's why I tried to do the caveat, is that if it's not something that I truly experience, like I've experienced it multiple times, and I wouldn't necessarily believe it. And I'm not just saying it to try to inspire somebody to create. It's like, I really do think sometimes that there's a magical spark sometimes that hits things. And I do think I can get my head in a it's you can call it summoning the muse, you can call it's just vibrating in a different way, where sometimes I'm bored and depressed and stare at the wall for a long time, and sometimes I feel so fully alive, and I'm connected, and the energy is just flowing in a different way through me, and it's like I'm working hard to try to get into that headspace, and whatever I need to do to get in that headspace to summon that energy, summon that muse is what I need to do. And like it's sometimes I have to drive an hour and a half away from home, walk in the woods with a notebook and no technology, staring at a creek for 2 hours before I can get myself moving in that way where I'm open to these outside forces, where my energy is flowing in a healthy state that's ready to be creative. It's hard to do.
I was going to say, trying to eliminate or reduce the demands of everything around us to let other things in is really difficult. And when anybody says to me anything about there being a more powerful, more imaginative, more knowledgeable force in my life, my immediate assumption is they're talking about my wife. And that's usually the case. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll make it small comment. I whatever it is, that is well, so I guess it's you can't live in a psychedelic dream state connected to the muse all day every day. You sometimes you got to tie your shoes and do projects around the house and fill out tax forms and things like that. And it's like you would if we lived in the wilderness, if I was sitting there singing songs to myself every day, I'm probably going to get bitten by a lion. And so it's a very practical thing for me to wake up every day and drink coffee and sit down at the computer and be in a very not creative state. I've self-diagnosed myself with like ADD for my whole life, and I go into dream world very easily. It's a coping mechanism to get me through public school. Is just I can zone anything out and go daydream all day. And it still happens, but now I'm able to, I put a box around it and I can get stuff done and I can send emails and submit my taxes on time. But that brain that is doing that is not the right brain that's going to be open to new ideas and not even creating melodies. Because I think an AI can create every melody that exists. You tell it the algorithm, it's going to spit it out. But am I going to be open to knowing and recognizing the magic in these melodies that are coming out? And it's two totally different brains and two totally different personalities. It's like, yeah, the brain needs to be functioning different to do the creative work. And it would mess you up. And I think it does mess up a lot of creative types of people who are not able to move between these two worlds. And I think my biggest fear is getting stuck in the tax season brain. And when my existential dread comes out, I go to write a song and I'm just not responding to the muse. I'm not able to connect with it. I start to beat myself up and get really down on myself because I'm terrified of that. It's like a magical fairyland that you get access to sometimes. And it's like, man, what if I get kicked out forever? That's my biggest fear is they're not going to let me back in. And so I make a point to leap over walls and try to get back in as much as I can.
Did you spend a lot of time? Did you spend a lot of time in detention when you were in high school? I did.
Yeah, I had some. I think it would shock a lot of people today because I'm a fairly mellow, serious person. I joke around in like the privacy of my most intimate relationships, but I was the class clown in high school, and I made a joke of everything. It was always getting kicked out of class and trying to make a mockery of, I think it was what's the word? Well, I knew there was something to rebel against. I just didn't know how to do it or what to rebel against in a way. I knew that something was off in the culture and community that I was in, and I knew it could be better. And I didn't know how to direct my energy, so I just knocked stuff down and tried to make a mockery of everything, and I sometimes succeeded in making a mockery of it. I'll say
the system is not designed to teach you how to protest against the system. So
no, yeah, and if somebody said, hey, like, we're because I don't see it as like I'm talking about like, public high school. I don't see it as a victim and a antagonist protagonist situation. I think the teachers also know, hey, this system's messed up. We're trying to navigate it. We're trying our best. The world's a dirty place. It's confusing. Capitalism's difficult. The other options are difficult. Everything's hard. We're trying our best to inspire you, but it's hard to do. Like, I think if somebody was like, hey, we're all in this being lost thing together, and here's my suggestions is you should read these books and learn these algebra equations, but I get it that you don't see the point in it. Because I think if somebody was able to give me a way to rebel and say, hey, we're on the same page. This all kind of blows. Like, how do we create a different way of things? I may have at a certain point, if you call me early enough, I may have been able to respond to it. But instead, it is trying to keep the train from going off the rails. They get, it's a little bit authoritarian, and just not having the humility to admit that nobody really knows what they're doing and knows how this all is supposed to work. Nobody admitted that. So I was like, well, I guess I got to just run away from it and tear it down and, run off the edges of the world, to get away from this. And perhaps it could have been different. I don't know. I also don't think anybody could have communicated much to me at 16, 17 years old.
Yeah, no, I think we may have had a slight advantage in that situation growing up in the late 60s, early 70s in Berkeley and San Francisco. But anyway, we go further.
There are cultural movements, and there's renaissances, and there's the Enlightenment. There are times when that people admit that things are not as good as they could be, and they try to make them slightly better, or much better, and I think that I think that there's a pessimism after the 60s and 70s. I don't know if pessimism is the right word, but I forget who this was. It may have been the songwriter from the band Dawes who said this, but Bob Dylan's thing was like the times they are changing, and then it's like nowadays we're like, well, what is, like, my song has to say exactly like what that's gonna be, like we've tried a lot of things as a culture and a community, and as a country, as a world, as global citizens, we've tried a lot of things and hit a lot of dead ends. And I feel like my generation, the generation below me, and I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I sense, and I'm not saying this is my thoughts necessarily, but I sense a sense of, it's not really just nihilism. It's just like, it's the effort is futile. It's like, starting a commune, trying to do green food, we're trying to reinvent the wheel. It's been tried so many times that we might as well just accept our fate, that this is our wheel. And it's a sad, I say it slightly sad, but I also don't blame anybody who feels that way. It's just, there's a lot going on in the world right now. I mean, we don't need to get into specifics. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You can put one of the 10 tragic things that are happening in the world right now. And, I think a fair reaction, and I don't think it's what I aspire to, but a fair reaction I don't judge anybody for is, well, shit, like this is not easy, and I don't know how to make it better, and I don't know what my role is in making it better, and is there a way, and I think that there is. I think it shouldn't be that hard. That's some of the songs I've been writing lately. One of them is just called Easy Ma, and it's like, it should be easy, Ma, but we make it hard. It's like, it shouldn't be that damn difficult to feed each other and live on the same planet together. It shouldn't be that hard, but it sure is. And I don't know. I think that that's where people are at right now, where, but I think we got to say it out loud and admit it, and I think
that's where music, I think, really has one of its greatest strengths, is in being able to express these kinds of things. And that's kind of what you're doing, and by writing songs and some of the stuff that you write and some of the stuff that you do. And that's what I'd like to talk a little more about, is let's talk about Hustle Souls and what you're doing and where you're going. And I didn't mean to bring,
I have no intention of bringing world politics into this.
Oh, I know. But yes, right at the moment, it's a hard thing to avoid.
No matter how sad and pessimistic I sound right now, I do believe deep down in the beauty of life, and I believe it is possible to get there
Yeah.
for everybody. And I believe, Hustle Souls, we sing about serious stuff, but we're also a fun party band. We do New Orleans horn brass music. There's an optimism even in our most serious songs that I'm trying to make you cry during. 100% of the time, there's I don't know if optimism is the right word, but a hopefulness. And that's one of my biggest messages when I go out and play. It's like, what do I want people to feel when they leave this show? And like, one of the things that I want you to come back and I want you to buy a record, but the true thing is I want you to feel that like life is possible, enjoying life even in a brief moment is okay and possible, and reminding people that that effort is not futile, that we can enjoy ourselves. And if I had to write a thesis on what I want from the band, I don't know if we ever achieve it or not, but that's what I would love for people to feel. And we're putting out a new album. We just released a song last week. We're putting out another song in November. We're putting out a whole album in December. We've got vinyl coming to my doorstep on Monday this week. And it's a pretty bright album. If you see the album cover, it's literally rainbows and trees and brightness, and it's pretty forcefully bright and feel good.
Well, we'll make sure to have links to where people can check that out and order it and everything included with all this. I just want to say, even the beautiful thing about writing music is even if it's a sad song or a happy song, whatever else, it just shows a commonality of emotions that we all share. And it doesn't matter what else is going on, it ties us all together. All of us have experienced heartbreak. All of us have experienced joy. All of us, have been through high times and low times. And that's what music reminds us. And well-written music especially just brings that right out to the forefront, and you find yourself sharing that with a bunch of other people.
Yes. And when I started writing music, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I had convinced myself it was like a selfish act. I had really, really bad stage fright and anxiety and performance anxiety. I did not share even the fact that I played music. I wouldn't share with people for a long time. I hid it as part of my personality and and so I would convince myself it was a selfish thing. I do these songs for myself. If nobody ever hears them, they're still serving their full purpose. But I actually discovered how much and I had the actual thought of oh shit, this is me. I've thought this. I just didn't have these words. I was reading, I've got a tattoo of him right here, but this is Dharma Bums right here, Jack Kerouac. So I picked up this book. I didn't read at the time, but this guy was on the cover hitchhiking, and I was curious about it, and I read it, and for the first time ever, I was like, I've thought this before. This is somebody giving me the words that I didn't even know that I needed them. It's like, it's 3 levels down. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. And this person is giving voice to those thoughts and telling me that my existence is, I'm not alone. It's not lonely. And I'm, it's like validating my existence, validating the parking. It's like you're allowed to feel this way. You're not wrong. You're not crazy. And then I realized, obviously, and it's going to sound so obvious. Sometimes I have this way of explaining the rules to a board game that everyone else already figured out a long time ago. I'm like, oh, you're supposed to try to get all the X's in a row for tic-tac-toe. And they're like, yeah, that's the whole damn point of the game. But it took me a while to realize, yes, the whole point of this music thing is to connect with somebody and to say, happy and sad, those aren't really what you're feeling. You're feeling something much more human and much deeper, and there's no word for it. There's no color that represents it. And sometimes you need a 900-page book. Sometimes you need a 3-minute song. Sometimes you need a hug from somebody. But if you can communicate hey, I've felt this before to somebody, man, it's like some of the most powerful moments of being a human. And at the end of the day, I'm a music fan first and foremost, and it's like those chills that I get, and those, like, I don't cry very often, but it has happened, and it's usually like it's goosebumps I get, where I feel validated and heard, and I see somebody else's humanity completely. It's easily one of the most powerful things that you can do as a human being.
It's kind of funny to hear you say that you have stage fright, because I got to say, watching your videos on YouTube, which I've been doing for a while, there's no indication.
It is a skill, like playing an instrument is like learning how to express yourself on stage. And I used to, so I was very, very, very insecure generally as a person. I didn't know myself, and I was ashamed of who I was. And then I'm trying to sing songs that kind of explains who I am, but I don't want you to know who I am. And that is the literal panic attacks I would get. I'd go to play trumpet in college, and my trumpet would be shaking, smashing me in the face because I'm having a panic attack. My body's out of control. But I wanted to play music, and tequila got me through it. I joined a cover band and took a couple shots before some shows, and I got in the zone and was able to play backing keyboards for a band, and I got used to it. But I had this vision that I could never lead a band and have good stage presence. So I convinced myself to be Miles Davis, where you turn your back to the audience, you don't say anything, you don't make an effort. It's their job to come to me. And that didn't work at all, because I'm not Miles Davis, and it didn't work. Then so I was like, all right, I have to be Freddie Mercury. That's what stage presence is. It's Van Halen, it's Freddie Mercury. It's like rip your shirt off, like scream at the top of your lungs, dancing around, jumping on stuff. And I tried to pull that out of myself, and but I failed at it a lot. And then I saw Jeff Tweedy from Wilco play by himself one time, not with the band, and he is controlling this 1,000-person room by himself with an acoustic guitar. And him compared to Freddie Mercury, you're like, this guy has no stage presence at all. He's just an old dad talking about his kids, and but he has this authenticity and this vulnerability and this confidence where he learned how to fully be himself on stage. And it doesn't matter who you are. Humans are all interesting. And if you can figure out who you are and be that unashamedly on stage, you can command a presence. And your presence doesn't have to be Freddie Mercury, and mine is not Freddie Mercury. But I started to just study the art of being myself on stage, and ask myself the question, what do I want to communicate? What do I want people to see? Do I want them to see it's time to chug liquor and party? Do I want them to see it's time to cry about our girlfriends? What do I want you to feel? And literally, like, asking these questions amongst the band or to myself, talking them out loud, writing about it, and trying to figure out who I am, what I'm trying to say. And it's a skill. It's a literal practice. And now I'm able to, sometimes not confidently, sometimes I fake it, but I can walk on stage and present present that presence. And but man, it's taken work. It's taken a lot of work.
You've done it really well, I have to say. It's been fascinating watching your videos and listening to your songs. I guess they call it Americana music. It's still a term that seems kind of, I don't know, I don't quite know how to define that, but it's just good music to listen to. And it's the kind of stuff that kind of can lift you up when it wants to. I mean, having the brass in the band is fantastic. I think that's a joy and a voice that adds that, we added the saxophone to our little band recently, and the difference in how songs come out is just amazing. And with your ability to do trumpet and keyboard and guitar and all at the same time, it seems sometimes, it's great to watch.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I almost quit trumpet at a certain point, because songwriting and playing keyboards and guitar in the band was taking over. And then I went down to New Orleans and had this whole brass is Miles Davis is so interesting because he plays trumpet, but he's like the introverted trumpet player. But in general, man, it goes out to you and it invites you in. It's a very inviting instrument. And, about the Americana thing is like, I consider ourselves Americana, what we're doing nowadays. We used to have some prog elements and jazz elements and all, but like, I think that the term Americana, I think, was my understanding of it. And I could totally be wrong with this. I'm definitely not a music scholar or history scholar, but it's guys like Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark who were a little bit left of center of the country Nashville sound, and we're doing some slightly, I'm not going to say that country music was not intellectual, but their stuff just didn't really fit the mold of a country song. It was a little bit intellectual, a little bit. I'm trying hard not to downplay great country music that did exist at the time, but there's a difference in some ways between what Townes was doing and some other artists were doing. And I think it was a way of segregating out that music from country music. And, a lot of those guys like Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt didn't see as much immediate commercial success as other people because they weren't country music, they were Americana, but it was Americana music. But then I think of Americana music a little bit more broadly today because basically what it means, I think, when people label the Americana station is like, it's stuff that's just a little too edgy for country music radio. And plus, it's country music at the end of the day, what's getting labeled there. And if we were honest about it, it would be country music. But to me, Americana is New Orleans jazz music, traditional jazz music, Delta blues. It is Motown, and it is Prince, and it is Nirvana. And it's like American music is really wide ranging. And so we do some stuff that I would call country music. But we also, we're also playing New Orleans traditional jazz music, and we're also playing blues music, and we're also playing some rock music, and we're definitely trying to do a lot of soul music. And it's, to me though, it's extremely American. It's classic Americana music. We're referencing the sounds that came out of America in that we grew up with, or influenced the people that we grew up with. And I try to say it at every show that we play, and sometimes I don't. But while we're on the subject of it, I do think it's really important to say that, like, the music that we're playing was created by genius Black Americans, and I'm writing songs and I am putting my own flavor to it, but it was Black Americans that created jazz music and blues music and country music and soul music and gospel. And we're directly pulling from gospel music. We're directly pulling from Second Line. It's a and I just, it's really important for me to say that it's genius Black Americans that not even paved the way, but perfected and created Americana music that now often is, it's generally Americana's kind of looked at as a white genre, and it came from genius Black Americans, all of it.
Yeah, no, we can't deny that at all. That's one of the greatest contributions to our culture that I think that we've ever heard. So,
yeah, 100% agree. I have a pretty good blues knowledge, and it 100% without question, the debt that we owe to Muddy and driving a tractor. Oh yeah, well, I was picking cotton at 7 and I was driving the tractor at 12. I was in charge. That's a life that doesn't exist to us. I mean, we can't even imagine that. 14 people living in, a house I have 900 square feet, 1,400 people living in this house, I mean, just so they could get up in the morning and go drag a sack around. It's amazing. We probably need to let you go.
Yeah.
All right.
You have brought something very, very, very special to this, And I- it's funny. We always kind of think about it as I always kind of think about it as we're driving the truck down the road and we get to something really great and we head for the ditch. Because there's excitement in the ditch. You know, the road is normal, but boy, the ditch can be a pretty cool place. And you took us to the ditch.
You know, well, hey, when the Hustle Souls album does come out, and I you know, again, it's supposed to be hopeful music, and it is, and so I really enjoyed this conversation. We went to we went to the ditch a little bit, but I appreciate y'all going there with me, and it's been a blast talking to y'all.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I hope you'll make it out to the West Coast and maybe do some shows out this way to promote the album and promote yourself.
Yeah, I'm working on it. It looks like I'm gonna be out there in January, and gonna work on getting our West Coast feet under us.
There's some good stuff out here. There's a show called Coyote Radio. It's run by George Thompson out of Sonoma. That's on Sunday morning. That's kind of you guys would fit perfectly on. And here in the Monterey area, we have a station called KPIC that is still live radio.
Oh wow!
Yeah, streaming. Actually, it's just KPIG. But they do live interviews, they do live stuff, and they're very, very. I hate to use the word Americana, you know, because that's really that's a bad word, but
it's not really a bad word. It's not.
I love the word Americana. I mean, I love it.
It's so wide open. That's the problem.
You know, I've been listening to this podcast. It's the history of rock and roll in 500 songs. I don't know if y'all have heard it, but he's going through early rock and roll, and it's deep stuff. This is like college level class stuff. Like it's really deep. So I'm 30 episodes in or something. But he talks about the way that genre has always been used, and it is about segregation, and there were race records, and then that turned into rhythm and blues, and it was just specifically and country music was for white people, but lower class white people, and there was music, and it was all about segregating people, and when you look at Americana music, it's coming from the same places. It's coming from gospel, black communities, and jazz music, rock and roll, blues music. The segregation is so arbitrary. I mean, the float between blues and rock and roll and gospel music and early jazz music is, you can do it between the verse and the chorus of one song. You can hit the roots of all American music, and I think that's what that's why I consider us Americana music. It's like it's all coming from that same place. So I love the word Americana. If it's becoming a bad word, we got to take it back.
Okay. Well, we can own it. We can own it to the positive side of things.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy. Have a fantastic day and a great show. And vinyl Monday.
Yeah, it's coming in.
Yeah.
Hustlesoulz.com. You can get yourself a copy. We'd love to send you one. It's also going to be out there streaming digitally, zeros and ones, very soon. So yeah, Hustle Souls.
All right. Well, all links to all of this will be included at the end of the podcast here. So we'll make sure that everybody can find that and order it and add it to their collection, I guess. For those of us who still know that you can put a needle down on a piece of plastic and hear something.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.